Hello, today I'm going to try to mark the coffee trees with the GeoMeasure device. I have done a marking exercise previously for this bit using the Garmin, so we can compare how these two counts stack up. So today again I'll be using SW Maps as the app which interfaces with the GeoMeasure device. The GeoMeasure device is currently in my bag here. So actually it makes sense to have a bag with this kind of a pouch because you can place it and the antenna faces on top. And so this device is interfaced with SW Maps. I will be using the track feature and the add point feature. So there's two features. One will be tracking my walking path continuously, and one will add a point when I add it to mark each of the trees. So that walking path helps to discern whether you've covered a particular line or not. This bit is about 1.35 acres as the 2D area goes, so without accounting for the slope. But as you can see, there is a bit of a slope going down, and so as per my terrain model calculations, it would come up to about 1.5 acres. So let's see how many trees are recorded with this. Also, let's keep track of the time taken to do this exercise. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon now. It'll take me about 5 minutes to set up the app. Before we go any further, remember that we also need an internet device. I forgot to carry my dongle and I realized I wasn't getting the fixed positioning because of that. So another point to note, remember to carry a geo dongle or something where you can get internet. That's how the corrections are propagated to the app. Okay, so now I've got my geo dongle. Also, Tirki the dog has joined me for today's mission. I've also got this nice good gum, cold coffee flavored chewing gum, which is awesome. Gives you a caffeine sort of a kick as well, a mild one. So yeah, now let's get started. In SW Maps, select the layer panel, go to add layer and select drawn feature. Here we're using a point type feature. Let's give it a name, coffee trees. And then we make sure that our geo measure is connected. Note that sometimes after you connect to SW Maps, it might disconnect. That could be due to internet issues, or it just could be due to some glitch. Doesn't always happen, but if that does happen, just make sure you connect it again. As always, when you're using SW Maps, you can see the actual status of whether it's connected or not. So that's also a good cue. But this doesn't happen often. You just need to make sure that when it does happen, you know that has happened and connect it again. So actually it seems to happen when I swap out of SW Maps to the camera app or some other app, it disconnects it. So keep that in mind. While recording GPS points, you have this wide screen, but you swipe it down to get perspective of the land you covered. So the activity is done. For this 1.5 acres, I took about 1.5 hours and marked about 743 coffee trees. Total distance walked was about 3.02 kilometers. So I went up and down for every line except for the last 5, where I was doing 2 at a time, meaning on the way up I take 2 lines. I could do that there and not in the other places because here towards the end it was much more clear and regular, whereas in between when I was going, there are a lot of fallen trees like this. It's not been cleared, so it's essential for that to happen. And also just thinking about it, like, you know, in the middle of the exercise I also was having some issues with the GPS. For example, it was getting frozen, and although it's a very good degree of precision, still it's a bit cognitively demanding to check whether you've actually marked that tree or not. And so as I think about it, I think using devices like this would be good for field walks and marking of points, like, you know, let's say fallen trees, also to assess the ripeness. But it's not really good for mapping out the entire coffee trees of the estate. Perhaps it's better suited to something like LiDAR. I haven't yet used LiDAR technology for mapping, but I think that could be a game changer, because this is too much of effort, and if you were to delegate this to somebody else, I don't think they would put half the interest in actually doing it. You know, think about workers or any employees who you'd want to get this done by, and it's also going to cost a lot of manpower, and there's a degree of inaccuracy which steps in just because of human error and GPS errors. You know, you might have skipped a tree, so perhaps mapping of trees are better suited to LiDAR. But yes, this is still good for other all sorts of other applications. Pretty much an essential thing when you're walking down your plantation as a farmer or as a supervisor. I think you could definitely use this to mark one-off points, but just not as good to mark all the points. Nonetheless, let's just see how this overlays compared to the Garmin mapping. Do we see a much more structured line with this? And yeah, how does the Garmin stack up to that? And I'm really curious to see how LiDAR would sort of fit into this. Of course, from a tech point of view, it should be simple enough. You know, you fly the drone as per normal drone mapping operations, but instead of the camera payload, it would have LiDAR. So it does the LiDAR thing, and of course it won't be susceptible to the same GPS interference as this, because this is still under the canopy, under various canopies. When the drone is flying high above, it has a perfect line of sight to the sky, and it should be triangulated quite well, so we could get 1 centimeter accuracy everywhere all through the map. And it should be easy enough to sort of write a script and filter out all of the higher trees and just identify the coffee so that we can get a mark and account for it. Perhaps even age and other things could be estimated. Yeah, but for another day.